Money has never been the reward for those who work the hardest. If hard work determined wealth, then perhaps the ones working triple shifts, carrying entire families on their shoulders, would already be millionaires. But reality is harsher. Some people seem to just show up at the right moment, say the right things in the right tone, perform a few seemingly effortless acts, and money flows to them as if drawn by an invisible force. That isn't luck. That is the precise operation of a principle most people overlook. Money doesn't come from effort, but from the frequency you emit each day. You could read hundreds of finance books, attend every business course, even memorize the investment rules of the world's wealthiest individuals. But if your inner energy still emits signals of lack, fear, doubt, and self-limitation, all that knowledge remains theory. Money doesn't care how much you know, what you've done in the past, or how hard you're trying. It only responds to the exact frequency you're transmitting. The issue doesn't lie with the market, the economy, or your boss. The issue lies in your belief that money is something you must chase, compete for, or prove yourself worthy of before you can have it. But the truth is, money always reacts to who you are, not what you're doing. When your internal frequency emits confidence, generosity, stability, and unwavering faith, money is automatically drawn to you like a law of physics. There is no effort in it, only resonance. You can observe this truth everywhere. Two people launch businesses at the same time with the same strategies and markets. One breaks through, the other stalls. Two people work in the same company. One gets promoted, the other is overlooked. The difference doesn't lie in skill, but in vibration. One believes in their ability to receive abundance. The other operates from a hidden fear of not having enough. The universe doesn't distinguish between right or wrong, skilled or unskilled. It simply amplifies the exact energy you emit, nothing more, nothing less. What's troubling is that most people spend their entire lives misaligned and never realize it. They wake up each morning in the mindset of, I have to hustle to make money. They believe that the more they struggle, the more they sacrifice, the closer they'll get to abundance. But the truth is, the more you act from a place of lack, the more you reinforce that lack. It's like trying to unlock a safe with the wrong code. No matter how many times you turn the dial, the result is still zero. Every action, every thought, every word that stems from a sense of not having enough emits a vibration that repels money from coming closer. If you've ever wondered why someone who isn't smarter or more hardworking than you still lives a life of ease, here's the answer. They don't operate from the frequency of struggle. They don't send the universe the message, I need, but rather, I'm ready to receive. That is the difference between someone stuck in survival mode and someone flowing in the current of abundance. Abundance doesn't come after you have enough money. It comes from the way you choose to stand in this life as someone who already knows their worth. Poor people always think they need money in order to feel enough. Prosperous people understand that only when you feel enough does money begin to come. Not because you're proving anything, but because you're broadcasting the right signal. Money is neutral energy. It has no emotion, no bias, no concern for whether you're worthy. It only understands the language of vibration. If you emit the frequency of, I trust, I am safe, I am open to receiving, money will flow to you like water finding its lowest point. But if you keep transmitting, I lack, I'm unsure, I must work harder to deserve, you're creating an invisible barrier that repels every opportunity just as it nears. The difference between those constantly struggling with finances and those living in prosperity isn't that the latter work more, it's that they become a version that resonates with money. They behave as if money has always been present in their lives. They don't beg for money. They don't force money to arrive. They live and breathe as if money is a natural companion. The important question isn't, what do I have to do to make money, but what frequency am I emitting that's causing money to stay away from me? If you keep telling yourself, I always have bad luck, money's hard to earn, I don't know how to manage finances, then don't be surprised when those things keep repeating. The universe is extremely loyal. It doesn't oppose you. It simply mirrors back what you've been transmitting. Now's the time to stop and look honestly. Are you living as someone who is already wealthy from within? Is your mindset open and expansive? Do your words affirm or deny your self-worth? Do you dare to believe you're worthy even when you don't have anything yet? Because if you can't feel enough right now, you will never feel enough even with plenty. Money is not a reward for those who exhaust themselves. It is a natural response of the universe to the frequency you emit. So the real question is, what are you broadcasting each day? You can change jobs, move to a new place, learn new skills, even invest in the best strategies available in the market. But if the energetic layer within you still emits insecurity, anxiety, and a sense of insufficiency, then all those efforts are just surface-level movements. No one wants to hear this, but the truth is, lack does not begin with external circumstances. It begins with the misalignment within you. People often believe financial problems are caused by economic conditions, government policies, or poor decisions in the past, but all of these are merely external expressions of a deeper cause, a misalignment between your inner state and your inherent abundance. When your mind operates from the belief that I must struggle to get what I want, the universe won't argue with you. It simply responds to the frequency you emit, a frequency of exhaustion, worry, and inner conflict. You are not cursed, and you are not a victim of fate. You are simply broadcasting the wrong frequency, the frequency of doubt, of fear of not having enough, of self-limiting habits and the stories you've repeated in your head for years. I'm not good with money. I don't know how to manage money. I can never seem to have extra. These seemingly harmless phrases are actually vibrational contracts you've signed with lack. And until you decide to cancel those contracts, any external change will be temporary. There are people who, upon getting a raise, immediately spend more, keeping themselves in a constant state of depletion. There are people who win the lottery but lose everything within a few years. Others earn quite well, yet always feel broke. This has nothing to do with the amount of money they have, but everything to do with the gap between their subconscious and the state of prosperity. When you don't believe deep down that you deserve more, you'll unconsciously find ways to sabotage everything, not because you're foolish, but because you're being loyal to a belief system that's long been embedded within you. The truth you must face is this: you cannot hold on to anything greater than your inner capacity to receive. Your mindset is the mold, and money can only be poured into the mold you allow yourself to have. If that mold is cracked from old wounds, childhood criticism, or inherited beliefs like good people can't be rich, then no miracle can last long in your life. To change that, you don't need to do more, you need to return more. Return to recognize the inner programs you're unconsciously running. Return to listen to the story your inner voice is telling every day. Return to ask yourself, what do I believe about wealth? How do I treat money? Am I afraid of money? Or am I afraid of who I might become if I have a lot of it? This is not the work of logic, this is the work of deep awareness. Inner misalignment is not corrected through surface understanding, but through a quiet process, observing, conversing, forgiving, and redefining yourself. You cannot emit the frequency of abundance if your heart is still trapped in memories of lack, if your body still tenses at the thought of spending, if your breath is still shallow and rushed when receiving monthly bills. You must understand, money is not a reward for doing things right, nor a punishment for doing things wrong. Money is a reaction, neutral, precise, emotionless. It returns only to those who resonate with its essence of expansion, flow, and growth. If you are sending signals that oppose that essence, such as fear of losing money, the habit of hoarding out of anxiety, or the tendency to blame your circumstances, then you are blocking the flow right at the center of your inner being. Your current financial state is not a punishment, it is a mirror, and the mirror has no opinion. It only reflects what you are. If within you lies struggle, mistrust, and constant denial of self-worth, then the external world cannot offer a different experience. But just like a mirror, if you change your posture, your expression, your gaze, the reflection changes instantly. It's not that money is slow to come. It's that you are not yet ready to receive. It's not that the universe is testing you. It's that you're still clinging tightly to old contracts with lack. It's not that you're unlucky. It's that you haven't yet learned to stand firmly within the frequency of abundance as something that is already yours, not something to beg for, to strive for, or to manipulate into coming. You don't have to be perfect to start changing. You only need to be honest enough to look inward. Begin by observing the words you use daily when speaking about money. Identify the emotions that arise when you think about spending. Listen to the voice inside you when you see others succeed financially. Each reaction is a map pointing to where you are misaligned. And wherever there is misalignment, there needs to be adjustment, not through intellect, but through absolute honesty and the courage to go against every old programming. Abundance cannot enter a mind still closed in fear, and prosperity cannot harmonize with a heart that doesn't yet believe it is worthy. But the good news is, every misalignment can be corrected, not by force, but by returning to center, peeling away each false belief, and gradually restoring the vibrational balance between who you are and the flow of abundance that has always been waiting. Because prosperity never left, you've just unconsciously turned your back on it for far too long. Every word you utter about money, even in passing, carries a clear, energetic directive sent directly into the universe. And here's the thing, the universe doesn't question, doesn't judge, doesn't check if you're serious or just joking. It simply receives the command, verbatim. When you say, "I'm always broke before the end of the month," the universe understands it as an instruction to continue that state. When you complain, "I can never hold on to money," the universe registers it as a repeated and reinforced command. No one is making things hard for you. It's your own thoughts and spoken words day after day that are programming the financial reality you are now living. Think back over the past week. What did you say about money? Did you joke that you're flat broke? Did you half-jokingly claim wealth is for the next lifetime? Did you shrug and say, "Money and I just don't get along"? These may sound harmless, but they are lines of code you are personally typing into the operating system of your life. And no operating system runs well when the input is riddled with self-limiting bugs. Thoughts are the same. They are the whispers in your mind, even when unspoken. When you think, "I'm not smart enough to be rich," even fleetingly, you initiate a low frequency that blocks the financial flow. When you question whether you deserve more, you unconsciously erect a barrier, not to protect yourself, but to keep you within the safety zone of familiar scarcity. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility if you truly want to change. Every person has a financial operating system within, and that system is programmed by the very words, emotions, and beliefs you repeat. You can't use negative language to create positive results. You can't call money trouble and expect more of it to arrive. You can't constantly say money is a burden and ask the universe to send you financial ease. This inner contradiction pulls you 2 steps back for every 1 step forward. Financial transformation doesn't begin with a strategy. It begins with awareness of the language you use each day. Try shifting a familiar phrase. Instead of saying, "I can't afford that," say, "That's not in my current budget priority." This change may seem small, but it's elegant. It moves you from a passive to an active stance, from a victim to a decision maker. It doesn't reflect scarcity, it reflects intentionality. When you say money comes to me easily and naturally, at first you might not believe it. That's because you've become accustomed to a different vocabulary, a vocabulary of worry, lack, and defensive reflexes. If you want to change the result, you must change the operating language, and to change the language, you must change the belief beneath it. No one can consistently speak of lack and still live in abundance. No one can plant seeds of doubt daily and expect to harvest trust. Your words are seeds. Every sentence is a sprouting life. What are you planting today? Are the words you speak about money reinforcing the identity of your inner wealth, or are they carving deeper the role of someone who is always struggling? The power isn't in how loudly you speak. It's in what you repeat consistently. If you say, "I'm learning to master money every day," your inner truth will gradually adjust. If you affirm, "I deserve abundance" regularly, your nervous system will start to acclimate to that feeling. And once the body gets used to it, behavior will naturally align. You'll spend differently, invest differently, negotiate differently. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're broadcasting a new frequency. There's a truth few people realize. You cannot emit a frequency you've never actually spoken aloud. The wealth affirmations you've never dared to say are the very frequencies you've never sent out. Try saying them daily. Not because you're lying to yourself, but because you're reprogramming. Your mind doesn't distinguish between true and false. It only records repetition. And the universe is the same. It doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you believe through your consistent thoughts and speech. If you want money to respond differently, start talking to money differently. Don't call it a burden, call it a resource. Don't say, "I'm bad at finances." Say, "I'm expanding my understanding of money every day." Don't say, "Money only comes to the lucky." Say, "Money flows to those who speak its language, and I'm learning quickly." Money doesn't need you to be perfect, it only needs you to be honest. Honest about how you speak about it. Honest about what you're planting through each story, each joke, each careless complaint. Every one of those is a signal, and the material world, though sometimes delayed, always responds. Your financial outcome is not a punishment. It is the precise reflection of the language you've been repeating all this time. If you truly want a different outcome, begin with a different sentence. A new sentence, spoken regularly, with intention and with respect for yourself, because you are not only worthy of more, you are fully capable of emitting the right frequency to make it happen. Every day you're making transactions with the universe without receiving an invoice or a receipt. There's no ledger recording it, no visible account balance, but every word you speak and every thought you repeat is either a deposit into or a withdrawal from an invisible account, one that stores not only energy, but also the financial destiny of your life. You are a spiritual bank, and your words are real transactions. When you say, "I never have enough money," you're signing a withdrawal order from your own supply system. When you complain, "Money comes and goes too fast," you're reaffirming a lost directive you sent out long ago. On the other hand, when you say, "All my needs are met," you are making a deposit, not of physical currency, but of the frequency of faith, sending a message to the universe that you are ready to receive. This mechanism doesn't depend on religion, nor does it require rituals. It's simply the operating principle of spiritual energy. And the important truth is, the universe never forgets a single word you say. Imagine your spiritual bank account as a space that stores vibration. Every word you speak is a command. Every phrase you repeat is a transfer of funds. And unlike a traditional bank where money comes only from work or physical transactions, this bank responds to the vibration of belief. If you constantly speak of worry, poverty, or helplessness, you create an invisible stream of withdrawals that slowly deplete everything you've accumulated. If you speak with gratitude, trust, and generosity, you're making steady deposits that no interest rate in the world can compare to. Most people live with a spiritual account that has been overdrawn for years, not because they're not skilled, but because they've unconsciously deposited too many negative statements. They don't realize that the joke, "I'm broke again," has real impact. They don't recognize that every time they say, "My life has never gone smoothly when it comes to money," they're reaffirming a spiritual debt they themselves are owing. They unknowingly become the debtor to their own thoughts. This doesn't mean you must become someone who always speaks in artificial positivity. Rather, you must become someone intentional with your words, someone who understands that every spoken word is a transaction being processed. Just like a successful entrepreneur wouldn't send out an important email without proofreading every word, you need to be conscious of every sentence you speak about finances, not to control, but to direct. When you say, "I'm learning to manage money better each day," you've just initiated a deposit, not only into your spiritual bank account, but into your nervous system, your mind, and your behavior. Words don't just send signals outward, they also reprogram inward. Every time you affirm something enough times, your belief system will restructure itself to help you achieve it. From there, your financial choices, opportunities, intuition, and inspirations begin to align with this new internal account. One reason many people don't improve financially despite effort is because they continue to behave like those who are spiritually bankrupt. They spend money in fear. They receive money in doubt. They speak of money as if it's a mysterious stranger. Meanwhile, those who are truly wealthy in spirit, long before they become wealthy in form, always speak of money as a natural flow, a trustworthy partner, a friend they can call upon when needed. They know, as you're beginning to realize, that words aren't meant to describe your current condition. They're meant to define your direction. If every day you say, "I live in abundant provision," you're not just reassuring yourself. You're opening the gate for the invisible banking system to understand that you are ready for more. And because this is a spiritual bank, it has no cap on interest rates, no restrictions on growth. Only one condition: you must emit the right signal consistently. Each morning, before reaching for your phone or checking your physical bank balance, check the balance of your belief. What are you telling the world today? Are you sending out signals of abundance or signals of scarcity? Are you withdrawing or depositing? This isn't a metaphor, it's energetic reality, a reality that you either maintain or disrupt by the words you choose to release. It's time to stop speaking casually and start speaking deliberately. Speak to build, to heal, to unlock the higher realms of wealth that are already waiting. Don't let your mouth repeat the same phrases that once kept your parents living in financial worry. Don't keep broadcasting the language that has kept you trapped in old limits for far too long. Speak as an investor, because that's exactly what you are. Not in the market, but in yourself. You are the bank. Your words are the transactions. And the financial results you are living with today are simply the detailed statement of the commands you've been sending out for years. No financial law is more powerful than the law of the word, because nothing shapes material reality faster or more precisely than what you repeat every day with your own mouth. You might think that words are just fleeting sounds, that language is for communication, storytelling, or joking, but the universe doesn't interpret nuance. It doesn't laugh when you sarcastically call yourself broke as hell. It doesn't overlook it when you joke that money hates me now. It simply records, encodes, and transforms, commands into outcomes. The law of the word is the foundation of all creation, because everything begins with a word. Every time you say something about money, "I'm always broke at the end of the month. I'm not good at managing money. I've never earned as much as others," you're not merely describing reality. You are casting a mold, an invisible framework into which material energy will be poured and transformed into results. The universe doesn't differentiate between whether what you say is present or past, joking or serious, wish or fear. It does only one thing: responds to the frequency your words emit. In the structure of the spiritual realm, which is also the foundational structure for all physical reality, words are ignition commands. They open the gates for the flow to begin. They summon formless energy into form. When you say money flows to me easily, you're creating a receiving channel. When you say I never have enough, you're building a wall. Both have effect. Both are equally powerful. The problem is, you've grown used to using this law against yourself instead of for yourself. Those unaware of the law of the word tend to speak unconsciously. They assume that casual comments or a few random complaints don't matter. But in reality, that very unconscious repetition forms a consistent vibrational map. And once that map is established, everything that comes to you follows the coordinates already set. You could work harder, study better, invest more wisely. But if your daily language is still full of limiting declarations, prosperity won't be able to find you because you haven't allowed it to come close. The law of the word isn't a positivity trick. It's a tool for creating reality, and like any tool, you must use it properly. If you use words to describe poverty, you are reaffirming the old. But if you use words to declare the new, even if it's not yet visible, you are redrawing the spiritual blueprint for the reality to come. That's not delusion. It is the one thing you truly have control over, the content you release through your own voice. Successful people don't just act differently, they speak differently. They don't start their day with, here comes another exhausting day. They begin with, today is an opportunity to expand value. They don't say, I hope I get lucky. They say, everything is aligning to serve me. They don't use language that reflects fear. They use language that reflects vision. And that adjustment creates a different frequency, one that money recognizes and responds to. However, for this law to truly function, one crucial element is needed: intentional repetition. A single positive statement cannot neutralize 10 years of self-criticism, but one correct declaration repeated daily with trust and emotion will begin to dismantle the spiritual malware embedded in your system for far too long. You must declare what you are not yet familiar with until your own nervous system begins to believe it as your new truth. Mantra has no magic if it isn't spoken consistently. Start by observing yourself. The last time you spoke about money, did your voice carry belief or weariness? Did your language point toward expansion or reaffirm limitation? Were you echoing the words of others, your parents, co-workers, society? Or were you crafting your own language system? If you want to change your financial destiny, don't just change your actions. Start by choosing new words. No one becomes wealthy through timid speech. The law of the word doesn't ask you to positivize everything. It asks you to be precise about what you want to multiply. Don't speak of lack if you don't want more of it. Don't keep retelling the story of how you were cheated if you don't want to relive that emotion. Replace it with a new narrative, one in which you are learning, growing, and evolving in your understanding and value. Speak like a creator, not like someone passively reacting. Your financial reality doesn't begin with your bank account. It begins with how you speak about money. If you want to change your external balance, first, revise the internal content of your statements. Don't say, I don't know if I'll have enough. Say, all my needs are always met on time. Don't say, I probably can't afford that. Say, I'm prioritizing what nourishes my value right now. Every time you do that, you're bringing the system back on track. You don't need to speak loudly, but you must speak clearly. Without confusion, without hesitation, without apology. Declare your words with the tone of someone who believes in the effect of what they say. And let the alignment between your language and your inner energy become the pathway for money to find you naturally, effortlessly, without struggle. Because in the end, money doesn't chase anyone. It only comes to those who know how to speak its language. The language of conviction, clarity, consistency, and refined intention, so precise the universe cannot misinterpret it. The law of the word is not optional. It's in operation every day, whether you're aware of it or not. And if you realize that early, you'll never again use a single word against yourself. Most people use language like a mirror to reflect what's happening in their lives. They talk about their account balance as if reporting the news. They describe financial pressure as if seeking someone's empathy. They repeat complaints about prices, wages, and the market like a daily news bulletin. But because they've grown so used to using words to report, they forget that words are not meant to reflect reality, but to restructure it. Every sentence you utter is not just an expression of emotion. It is an energetic command setting the direction for what unfolds next in your life. You could be living in a cramped room with bills piled high and still declare, "I'm consciously building my prosperity." You could be struggling through work and still say, "I'm learning to allow money to flow toward me more easily each day." You could be facing real hardship and still choose to use your words to lead yourself out of it, instead of hammering it in further by retelling it, because you understand that words are not the verdict of the present, they are the pathway to the future. When you say, "I don't have money," it may be factually true the moment you look in your wallet, but the danger doesn't lie in the objective truth. It lies in the unconscious bond you create between who you are and a temporary circumstance. When you repeat that sentence enough times, you begin to turn it into part of your identity. And once it becomes part of your identity, the universe no longer responds to circumstances. It responds to the person you're choosing to become. You're no longer just someone who temporarily lacks money. You become someone who believes they always lack. And the law of attraction doesn't respond to circumstances, it only responds to belief. This is the point most people miss. They think that speaking the truth is being honest, being real. But they forget that truth never stands still, it changes with awareness. What you call reality is simply an old vibrational snapshot, the result of what you said, thought, and believed in the past. If you continue to use language to describe what has already materialized, you're locking in the loop. You're reaffirming exactly what you're trying to escape. You say life is so hard and life keeps providing you with more evidence, not because it's against you, but because you're the one issuing the command over and over again. Instead of describing reality, ask, "What do I want to create from here?" Instead of saying, "I always have money problems," choose, "I am building a new relationship with abundance." Instead of "everything feels out of reach," say, "The right things are steadily making their way to me." Not because you're sugarcoating life, but because you're changing the energetic axis of response that you're standing on. Every sentence is a vibrational milestone. Every word choice is a directional marker. You don't need to distort reality, but you absolutely can choose the direction you want it to evolve toward. This doesn't mean you deny difficulty, but there's a big difference between acknowledging a challenge and defining yourself by it. You can say, "Right now, I'm facing financial challenges, but I know I'm learning lessons that will form the foundation for long-term growth." That's not fantasy. That's ownership. Because you're not letting your words trap you in your current state, you're using them as tools to unlock the formation of a new reality. If you pay close attention, you'll see that those who radically transform their financial lives aren't the ones who know the most, but the ones with the clearest creative language. They don't say, "I'm bankrupt." They say, "I'm restructuring my entire financial system to align with my new vision." They don't say, "My loan was rejected." They say, "The universe is redirecting me to funding sources that match the value I'm building." These people don't live by descriptive language. They live by directive language. And reality obeys those commands. The reason words are so powerful is because they affect all three levels: emotion, belief, and behavior. When you speak something intentionally, you generate the matching emotion. That emotion activates belief, and belief drives action. In other words, a single correct sentence can shift how you feel and therefore shift how you live. The sentence doesn't have to be long, just precise, honest enough not to trigger inner resistance, guiding enough to direct external systems to begin realignment. Don't let words become harmless tools, because in truth they are not harmless. They are directing the entire flow of your life, your finances, health, relationships, and the future you've yet to witness. Every time you choose a word with intention, you shift from being passive to being the creator. You stop living as someone at the mercy of circumstances. You begin living as someone steering the course. And if you're serious about financial transformation, begin with the first sentence you speak tomorrow morning. Don't describe the weather. Don't recount what's missing. Start with a directive. I am someone who knows how to direct the flow of money to the right place. Or simpler, today I speak what I want to see, and then you'll begin to see it. Not because of magic, but because you stopped repeating the old and started building something new from the most important place, the words you choose to define yourself. Money was never created to stay still. It is a current of energy, a force that demands movement, just like blood in the body. When it circulates smoothly, the system becomes strong, but when it clogs, even in one place, the whole mechanism weakens. The law of circulation is not merely a financial principle. It is the governing law of life itself. Everything that does not circulate deteriorates, and money is no exception. People often try to hold on to money as if clinging to survival. They save, they tread carefully, they grasp every bill tightly, afraid that letting go, even once, might cause everything to vanish. But what they don't realize is it is precisely that tight grip that makes money flee faster. Because the energy of fear sends a very clear message, I don't believe it will return. And when you emit distrust, the universe responds with exactly what you fear: disruption. Money was not born to be hoarded in panic. It was born to move, to interact, to be used as a tool for value expansion. And the paradox is, only when you learn to let money go consciously does it learn how to return to you more often and in greater amounts. Those who don't understand this law always spend with a sense of loss. Those who live in alignment with the law of circulation always spend with gratitude and a sense of growth. Every time you spend, even a small amount, you are sending a piece of energy into the world. But have you paid attention to what you say when you make a payment? There goes my money again, or I know this will return to me multiplied. The emotion you attach to spending is the message you send to the universe's invisible bank. And the universe, as always, does only one thing. It listens, records, and responds with absolute honesty. The wealthy are not simply those who have more money. They are those who have a healthier relationship with money's flow. They don't see spending as loss, but as investment in a larger stream. When they pay, they don't feel poorer. They feel like they're participating in an expanding financial ecosystem. They know that each time they release money, they're keeping their personal energy system in motion. Just like breathing, you must exhale to inhale. If you only hold your breath, you'll suffocate. The same applies to your finances. Without circulation, there is no life. Reflect on the times when you tightened your spending to the extreme, cutting out every so-called luxury just to hold on to your money. And what happened then? Did you feel more at peace, or did you only become more afraid of running out? This doesn't mean you should spend recklessly, but if every act of spending is driven by fear, then you're draining the blood from your own prosperity system. You're living like a frozen lake, and nothing thrives in water that does not move. The law of circulation doesn't require you to spend more. It only asks that you give from the right frequency. A frequency of trust, of expectation of return, of knowing that each act of circulation is nurturing your financial river. When you purchase something from a place of abundance, you send a signal that you live in provision. When you help someone from generosity, you create the space for the universe to refill you. But when you spend in contraction, in tightness, in doubt, you are shutting the door on your primary channels of circulation. There's a very clear principle. The universe cannot give more to someone who does not believe they will be able to hold it. And there's no clearer indicator of true belief than how you give. Someone who truly believes in abundance will not tremble when paying for value. They will not hesitate to invest in their growth. They don't spend to soothe emotion. They spend to maintain the expanding current within. They understand that giving does not diminish them. It only widens their capacity to receive. Take a look at how you've spent money this past week. Did you spend with faith or with fear? Did you give from gratitude or from exhaustion? Every time you open your wallet, are you telling the universe, I manage this flow, I know it will come back? Or are you quietly reinforcing the old belief that money, once gone, never returns? The answer doesn't lie in the amount of money you have. It lies in how you behave with each sum you release. The law of circulation doesn't operate based on numbers. It operates on emotional frequency. A person who gives $1 with deep gratitude and trust will activate the flow of abundance faster than someone who spends 10 times that amount with doubt. The universe doesn't respond to numbers. It responds to frequency. And your frequency is determined by your internal state when you circulate financially. You don't need to do anything extraordinary to align with this law. Just begin with awareness. Every financial act is an energetic ritual. Every payment is a declaration, I trust the flow. Every investment is an affirmation, I am a place where money is used wisely. Every time you help someone, it's a message. I'm planting seeds, and I believe in the harvest. Not every act of circulation will return instantly, but every act done with the right frequency will return more precisely, more abundantly, and more powerfully. Just like a river flowing to the ocean, the water is never lost. It simply transforms, cycles, and returns in another form. So does your money. When you release it the right way, you do not lose, you invite life to return. Every time you release money, you send a message. It's not merely a financial action, it's a vibrational command sent into the universal system. But here's the thing. Most people carry out financial transactions in silence. They swipe their cards, transfer funds, pay bills as a purely mechanical act, without emotion, without declaration, without intention. And because no clear signal is sent out, the universe receives no directive to act upon. While you may think you've just spent money, what you've actually sent out on the energetic level is emptiness. Money is energy in motion, and when you release it without a declaration, you fail to guide it back to you. It's like planting a precious seed in dry soil, then walking away without watering it, without calling for the season, and then wondering why nothing grows. The law of circulation doesn't stop at the act of giving. It only becomes effective when you attach a deliberate declaration. That declaration isn't a religious ritual, and it doesn't have to be long. It just needs to be clear, consistent, and vibrationally aligned. I know this is returning to me greater, more timely, and more intelligently. A wise financial operator doesn't spend money like someone accepting loss. They spend like someone activating the flow. When they make a payment, they quietly affirm, this transaction expands my receiving channel. When they invest, they say, I'm planting seeds, and harvest is being programmed. When they give, they declare, what I'm releasing is a signal for something stronger to return. And it is precisely this alignment between financial action and vibrational language that separates those who direct their financial reality from those passively caught in its current. Why is declaration necessary? Because words are what activate energy. An action without a declaration is just a physical gesture. But when you use words to attach purpose, emotion, and direction to it, that action is programmed and transmitted as an encoded message. You are no longer just a shopper, a debtor, a spender. You become the orchestrator of the energy through which money moves. The remarkable part, you don't need to say it aloud. You don't need to speak in front of others or recite affirmations in a mirror. You only need to, in the very moment you transfer money, speak in your mind with clarity and conviction. This money is released from a place of abundance. It returns to me tenfold through unexpected channels at the perfect time. Sounds strange, maybe, but what might happen if you tried it for the next 30 days and observed how the flow begins to shift? Many people dismiss the idea of declaring while spending as superstition. Yet they constantly repeat negative phrases every time they part with money. There goes more cash. I wonder if I'll ever have extra. The harder I work, the poorer I get. They do make declarations, but in the opposite direction. And the universe still responds. There is no right or wrong here, only mirrored frequencies. If you've unconsciously sent out hundreds of such negative commands in the past, then beginning to send intentional positive ones isn't superstition, it's system recalibration. Don't spend in silence. Don't give as though you've just lost something. Each time you release money, imagine you're sending a boat out to sea, and you must attach a letter of clear intention to it. You're not just telling the universe what you wish to receive, you're also confirming to yourself that you are not operating from lack, but from the awareness that money is a tool, a conduit, a resource you have full authority to direct. No one can create lasting financial stability if they continue to spend in guilt, regret, or anxiety, because those emotions send out the message, I'm not sure I'll be replenished, and when you're unsure, you break the flow. When you emit hesitant vibration, you unknowingly send a signal that blocks the return path. But when you declare clearly, you restore the vortex. You're not just letting money go, you're instructing it to carry information, value, and open a path to return to its source. Make every financial action a ritual. It doesn't need ceremony, just intention. Pay your utility bills with the phrase, "This circulation proves I am being served." Give someone money with the words, "This is a seed of prosperity, sown in faith and harvested in awe." Invest in your education with a whisper, "I am transforming resources into higher yielding capabilities." These declarations don't just influence the flow of money, they redefine who you are in your relationship with it. Money doesn't care how many financial books you've read, it only cares about the signal you emit every time you touch it. And if that signal is clear, consistent, and rooted in trust, then there's no reason the flow won't return to you. Don't spend in silence, because that silence is the reason money doesn't know how to find its way back. Give with words. Release with command. Open the channel with the voice of someone in charge, not the silent plea of someone hoping for a miracle. Prosperity doesn't show up when you hope for it. It shows up when you live as if it has already arrived. This is the core principle of the law of assumption, one of the most powerful yet often overlooked laws. People usually think they must wait for their circumstances to change before they can feel safe, abundant, or worthy. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Only when you begin to live from the frequency of what you want can that very thing manifest in your reality. Most people place all their trust in external evidence. They need to see money in their account before they allow themselves to feel secure. They need a clear invitation or opportunity before they believe prosperity is on its way. But they don't realize that every physical reality is merely the final layer in a chain of energetic reactions. Before anything appears in your hands, it has already been formed through vibration, through the internal state you broadcast continuously. And if that vibration is, I don't have it, I'm not enough, I'm still waiting, then reality can only respond by keeping you exactly in that state. The assumption is not daydreaming, nor is it pretending. It is a deliberate spiritual choice, a choice to live from the feeling of already having, regardless of current evidence. When you assume that you are someone capable of receiving abundance, you begin to act, speak, decide, and respond like someone who is no longer governed by lack. And that shift is exactly what causes the doors of the physical world to begin to move. If you're still saying, once I have more money, I'll feel more confident, you're hanging your confidence on an external condition, and you're broadcasting the signal that you don't yet have it. But if you shift that statement to, I choose to feel confident now because I know I'm living from the frequency of prosperity, then you're no longer waiting, you're becoming. The universe doesn't hand out rewards to those who try hard. It simply brings experiences that match those who are already aligned. People who live by the law of assumption don't wait for circumstances to change in order to feel wealthy. They decide to feel wealthy first, so the circumstances must follow. When they wake up, They don't check their bank balance to measure their self-worth. They measure it by the brightness in their mind, their readiness to stay open, by how they choose words and steer thoughts in every moment. They walk with the posture of someone who has, not someone who lacks. And the world responds by opening gates reserved for those carrying the correct energetic key. Don't confuse assumption with delusion. Assumption doesn't mean denying reality. It simply means you choose to broadcast from the point of where you want to go, not from where you're currently standing. Just like when you open Google Maps and enter a destination, you don't have to be there yet, but identifying the endpoint is what allows the system to chart your course. Likewise, when you begin behaving like someone already in the realm of prosperity, you activate the directions, opportunities, and connections that will take you exactly where you've assumed to be. Practicing this law doesn't require you to change your whole life overnight. It only requires you to shift your internal state from waiting to presence. Try observing something as simple as making your morning coffee. A person operating from the frequency of scarcity will do it in haste, even stress, mind racing over bills or unpaid debts. But a person living from the assumption of abundance will make that same coffee like someone who has time, options, and the right to savor. Not because they have more time, but because they choose to emit the signal that they are living from sufficiency. When you live as if you already have, you open yourself to seeing things you previously missed. Your brain starts to notice opportunities, not because they suddenly appear, but because you've shifted from the awareness of someone waiting to someone ready. Choices become clearer. Relationships become more aligned. Even the way others respond to you changes, because you're no longer transmitting the signal of someone needing rescue, but the energy of someone in command. The real power of this law does not lie in instantly believing what you cannot yet see. It lies in your willingness to feel it as though it's already here. Emotion is the most accurate measure of the frequency you are emitting. If you say you're abundant, but still feel fear every time you open your wallet, then what you're transmitting is not prosperity. But if you begin to associate calm, gratitude, and joy with every spending act, then you are broadcasting a new reality regardless of your current bank balance. You cannot wait to have enough in order to feel enough. You must feel enough in order to begin having enough. That is the essence of the law of assumption. It doesn't ask you to change the world. It asks you to change the frequency from which you choose to live. And from that point, the world has no choice but to change in response. Wealth doesn't find those who sit and wait with hopeful eyes. It finds those who have chosen to live as if it already exists in every cell of their being. Hope, even though it appears positive, is still a form of postponement. It's an implicit declaration that says, I don't have it now, but I wish that one day I will. And that message, though gentle, sends a clear signal to the universe. I am lacking, but true wealth doesn't arise from lack. It doesn't respond to begging. It is only activated by the frequency of full presence. When you place all your expectations in a future that hasn't arrived, you strip power from the present moment, the only place where all transformation begins. Those who live on hope tend to delay action, retreat from opportunities, and cling to beautiful images in their mind without ever shifting their internal state. They dream of an abundant life, but every thought, emotion, and habit they have broadcasts the message that they are standing outside prosperity's door. What they don't realize is prosperity doesn't come when you wait for it. It comes when you begin living as if you already have access to it. Full presence doesn't mean having everything materially in front of you. It's the ability to step into the mental state of someone who is already whole, someone who believes they are valuable, who knows they have choices, who feels magnetic to good things. When you live from that state, you don't need to chase money, because money will find its way to where it's treated like a trusted friend, not a distant deity. Money, like all forms of prosperity, is drawn to where there is internal certainty, to the place where the person doesn't need to persuade, pretend, or hope, but only to be. Observe someone who is truly wealthy in energy. They don't talk much about money. They don't try to prove they're successful, but everything they do, their voice, their presence, emits one feeling: I already have. That's not arrogance. That's steadiness. They don't need validation because they've already validated themselves. And it is this very state that attracts all material value. The universe doesn't reward those who plead. The universe resonates with those who have already become. Full presence within is the solid foundation upon which all lasting wealth is built. You can start from zero, but if you emit the signal of someone ready to hold more, life will fill you quickly. Not because you have more skills, but because you are operating from trust, not from lack. And trust is not a concept, it's a felt state. In every breath, every decision, every moment you choose to respond differently. In contrast, those who live by hope are often deceived by the appearance of opportunity. They grab onto anything out of fear there may not be a second chance. They spend money with anxiety, invest with doubt, and interact with pleading energy. They question, will it be enough in everything they do? And as a result, exactly as they broadcast, it's never enough. Not because life is lacking, but because they've never stood in the right place to receive. They're outside the door knocking with hope instead of stepping in with presence. The turning point happens when you stop waiting and start living as if you've already been chosen. When you eat breakfast, not like someone rushing, but like someone who has time for good things. When you walk, not like someone escaping, but like someone heading towards something they know is coming. When you spend money, not like someone afraid of loss, but like someone managing a flow. These small shifts create an entirely different energy field, and the universe cannot help but respond with a matching reality. Wealth isn't something that knocks on your door when you've been good enough, smart enough, or hardworking enough. It comes when you start behaving like someone already worthy of living in it right now. No one can create stable cash flow if their mind still operates in scarcity. And no one can step into a prosperous reality if their heart is still clouded by the assumption, I'm not ready. You don't need more external conditions to feel wealthy. You only need to pull your energy out of the future and place it back into the present, where you can adjust, choose, and create new vibration. Full presence is a choice you can make every morning. You can sit down, look at the day ahead, and ask, if I were already someone living in prosperity, what would I do differently today? No need for grand gestures, just a shift in perspective. Just a beginning from the state of, I already have, in my mind, in my heart, in my energy. When you change your starting point, you change the entire journey. Wealth is not a gift from the future. It is a reality that can be activated the moment you choose to stop hoping and start being present. Present with gratitude, present with agency, present with the deep knowing that you are a worthy part of the flow of abundance. From there, everything begins. Not from waiting, but from your own inner power. Not every act of giving creates blessing. Not every offering results in return. Because if you give in silence, in haste, in autopilot, then you're not truly sending out energy. You're merely transferring material. The law of tithing with word reminds you that the power of a giving act doesn't lie in the amount, but in the energetic frequency you emit when you perform it. And that energy is not activated by your hands, but by your words, by a clear declaration. I am not losing, I am opening. A person who gives without words is like someone sending a letter without an address. The universe has no idea how to respond. They act as if there's only one direction, I give, and that's the end. But someone who understands this law never sends out undefined energy. They know that if the action isn't programmed with language, the flow will break, because money is just a carrier of the message. Words are the actual command. Every time you give, whether it's money, a gift, or an act of kindness, you are opening an energetic channel. But that channel only operates fully if you accompany it with a spiritual command. I choose to release value, and this will return to me in a better, deeper, and more timely way. That declaration is not to force the universe. It is a confirmation that you know you're in control of the flow, not depleting but creating. It moves you out of a mindset of loss and into a proactive state of cause and effect. Silent giving easily leads the mind into a state of sacrifice. You give without knowing why. You offer but don't feel increased. You feel something has been lost and then begin to long for compensation, and that very longing emits a frequency of lack. In contrast, giving with word doesn't generate expectation, it generates certainty. You don't need repayment because you know the flow has been activated. You know you're operating on a plane higher than money. Wise giving doesn't come from obligation, it comes from awareness. I am clearing a path for the flow to move through me, and every time I open one end, another is being opened for me. I don't give because I have excess. I give because I am part of a system of circulation, and for this system to function, I cannot release only assets. I must release frequency. I must speak. I must let the universe know I'm participating as a collaborator, not a passive recipient of miracles. You can start simply. Every time you transfer money to help someone, think to yourself, I choose to contribute to a better flow, and this is returning to me in ways that surprise me. When you give your time to help a loved one, quietly say, I am sending out energy of value, and the universe is storing it to return it at the right time. When you make a donation, affirm, I am not losing. I am expanding my influence, and it will return in a more accurate, greater form. These statements, though unheard by others, carry the power to encode reality. Because words are navigational signals. They are the programming tool of energy layers. They are proof that you are not only giving material, but giving with awareness that you hold value, have agency, and are part of a system larger than yourself. Giving is not a loss, it is an investment, and true investment is never done in silence. Every successful investor knows when to speak, when to send the message to the right place. When you voice what you choose to believe, I am planting, I am activating, I am generating motion. You don't need to prove it immediately. You just need to maintain the belief that all returns begin with one intentional release. People often confuse silence with humility. They think that if they give without saying anything, it's more noble. But silence is not always humility. Sometimes it's a sign of disbelief. A mindset that says, I don't dare ask for anything, I just give, and leave the rest to fate. But the universe doesn't operate on quiet submission. It operates on clarity. When you give without words, you miss the chance to program. When you give with words, you don't just create a flow, you direct it. And that is the true essence of someone who masters financial energy. Don't give out of fear of not being recognized. Don't stay silent because you're afraid of being seen as calculating. Giving without words doesn't make you more virtuous, it only makes you more vague. And in the world of energy, vagueness is the enemy of circulation. Be clear, be intentional. Send out both the value and the affirmation of that value. Because the combination of substance and language is the formula that creates continuous motion. And that's why those who give with intention always receive more than they ever imagined. Never think that you are giving money to a person, because when you believe that the recipient is an individual, you will unconsciously attach expectations, judgments, or even disappointment if the result does not come from that person. Money, if given from the right level of awareness, must be offered to a principle, not an identity. Because if you understand the true nature of the flow of prosperity, you will know that every time you give, you are interacting with an invisible law. Not doing someone a favor, When you give a sum of money, no matter how small, you are activating the law of circulation. You are telling the universe, I believe in the operation of value, and what you believe in is what gets amplified. People may betray you, situations may change, but principles do not. Principles are immutable. They don't respond to your emotions, but to the frequency you emit when acting. If you give with the mindset, I'm helping this person because they need it, you're operating from pity, a lower level. But if you give with the belief, I am placing my trust in the law of sowing and reaping, in circulation, in the order of the flow of money, then even if the recipient is ungrateful, the universe remains grateful to you because you're not giving to a person, you're investing in the system. There are people who hand out money, but their hearts are tightly bound by cords of expectation. They wait to be acknowledged. They hope the recipient will succeed to prove the investment was worth it. They monitor, check, compare, and when the result isn't what they wanted, they withdraw their goodwill. But true kindness doesn't operate on control. It works like a contribution to principle, like planting a seed. You don't need to beg the sun to rise on time. You only need to believe that if you sow correctly, abundantly, the ecosystem will respond to you on time. If you want your money to grow, you must learn to give it to the right idea, not a charming face. Because faces can change, relationships can disappear. But the right idea, when nurtured, creates value for the whole system. When you invest in a vision, a principle, an effort that serves something greater than its creator, you are fueling a wheel of prosperity. And that wheel will bring you back to the center of the flow. You don't need to know whether the other person is worthy. You only need to ask, what value am I resonating with through this transaction? If you are resonating with dedication, with effort, with creativity, with expansion, give without hesitation. Because it's not giving to a person, it's giving to the flow. It's giving to yourself in the form of the future. It's proving that you're smart enough not to trap money in personal emotions, but to place it in motion within a system greater than any individual. Prosperity is never nurtured in a state of over-personalization. The more you personalize the flow, the more you become vulnerable to mood swings. One day you give because someone looks pitiful. The next you withdraw because they weren't grateful. Your mind becomes a hostage to emotional reactions. But those who live by principle do not sway based on others' responses. They give like strategic investors. No need for compliments. No need for gratitude. They only need to know that they are activating the right axis of force. Don't ever ask, is this person worthy of my help? Instead ask, do I want to live as someone who nurtures the right principle? If the answer is yes, then give. It doesn't have to be much, but it must be clear. And always remember, what you truly send out is not money, but the energy behind that action. If that energy is blame, calculation, or testing, then the money you send won't open anything greater. But if that energy is trust in the system, then even if the recipient doesn't respond, the flow will return to you elsewhere. At the moment you need it most. People often misjudge an act of giving based on the recipient, but you don't need the recipient to be perfect. You only need yourself to be aware enough to know what invisible force you're investing in. Wise people don't count the money they've given. They track the frequency they emitted when giving, because they understand that money is finite, but vibration is eternal. And once that vibration has been correctly programmed, it will find every way to return to you, if not through the old recipient, then through a new opportunity. If not in the old form, then through a surprise beyond calculation. Giving to principles is how you prove to life, I am not just a spender, I am a conductor of flow. You don't need a lot to begin, only integrity and clarity with yourself. What am I nurturing when I give? If you are nurturing expansion, you will grow with it. If you are only resolving emotions, you'll get stuck in patchwork cycles. But if you give as someone who believes in the law, your action will be recorded at the deepest layer of circulation. No reality can be formed unless you have first agreed to it at the deepest level. This is not verbal agreement. It is energetic agreement, where you silently nod to a belief, a limitation, or a certain type of outcome, and that very thing becomes the framework of the reality you live in. The law of agreement does not care how many times you say, "I want to be wealthy." It only considers what you have silently nodded to within. And most of the time you are agreeing with lack without realizing it. Every morning you wake up and repeat the same thought patterns. "I'm not sure I'm ready. Everything is too hard. I don't know if I can do this." Each of those statements is an agreement. No signature, no contract needed. You have just entered into an invisible pact with poverty, with procrastination, with limitation. The universe does not respond to what you wish for. It only responds to what you accept without resistance. When you accept that you only deserve that salary, that relationship, that life, you don't need to do anything more. The law of agreement has finalized the paperwork. But the good news is you can withdraw that agreement at any time. You can reject old contracts by making new decisions, not through fleeting emotions, but through a change in belief systems. When you begin to say no to what once felt familiar, a toxic environment, a limiting mindset, an energy-draining relationship, you are sending a message: "I no longer agree with this old reality," and in that very moment, a new reality begins to vibrate into form. Agreement happens on many layers. The surface level says, "I want to go further," but the deeper layer is more crucial. Do I truly believe I can? Am I afraid of being left behind? Do I think I'm worthy? If deep down you still agree with thoughts like, "I have to please others to have value," "wealth is too far-fetched," "money comes easy, goes easy," then every external effort will be nullified. You cannot build a new reality on the foundation of old agreements. To change your life, you don't need to try harder. You need to withdraw the wrong nods. You need to re-examine every condition in your reality. Am I agreeing to this because I chose it, or because I didn't know I had the right to refuse? And the most important question, am I unintentionally maintaining something that no longer serves me just because it's familiar? Familiarity is the most potent psychological addiction. It makes you agree to smallness simply because you've lived in it for too long. But agreement is not fate, it is a choice. Repeated daily. Every word you speak is a manifestation of an agreement in action. When you say money is hard to earn, you're not just sharing a thought, you've just signed an energetic contract. And the law of agreement will confirm, understood. When you say, "I'm not good at investing," the universe doesn't argue with you, it simply arranges circumstances exactly as you've agreed. But when you begin to shift your language, "I'm learning how to make money work for me. I'm opening up to intelligent prosperity," you are withdrawing from old agreements and setting up new templates. No one is born bound by invisible contracts. We are bound because we didn't know we had ever signed them. But when you become conscious, when you begin to observe every word, every choice, every thought, you will realize you have the power to erase, rewrite, and alter the contract. And when that happens, you are no longer a victim of any reality. You are the author. You are the one redefining the rules of the game. The strongest agreement is not with others, but with yourself. If you agree that "I am someone who easily gets hurt, easily fails," you will unconsciously create situations that confirm it. But if you rewrite, "I'm someone who learns quickly from experience and becomes stronger with every challenge," then every cell, every behavior, every relationship will restructure itself to match the new self-ethic you've authorized. If you want money to come to you in a sustainable way, you must agree that you have the right to own it, without needing to prove yourself, without exhaustion, without guilt. You must withdraw your agreement with poverty that your ancestors or society implanted in you. You must rewrite the new valid condition. I don't need to sacrifice myself to be worthy. I only need to remain aligned with the true value of who I am. And when you hold that alignment, money has no other option but to find its way to you. You weren't born with a scarcity mindset. You were taught to be lacking. You were programmed by phrases repeated since childhood. Money doesn't grow on trees. Don't dream too big. You have to work hard to deserve anything. And each of those phrases, though seemingly harmless, became the initial clauses of the contract you signed with limitation. You didn't sign it with your hand, you signed it through unconscious repetition, through silently nodding every time you felt unworthy. And over time, that contract became your default operating system. It runs behind every action you take, every decision you make, and every boundary you believe is real. But no contract is permanent if you are aware enough to cancel it. No story is destiny if you are brave enough to rewrite the next chapter. Because lack is not a condition, it's an agreement you once accepted without realizing it. And like any agreement, it can be revoked. It can be torn up. But to do that, you need to face each clause you've been living by. The clause, I must work twice as hard to achieve half as much. The clause, I'm not good with numbers so I can't be wealthy. The clause, prosperity is for people luckier than me. Reread each one consciously. Ask, is this still true? And if it's not, cross it out decisively. Canceling the old contract does not mean denying your past. It simply means refusing to let the past keep shaping your present. You're no longer a child asking permission to have money. You're no longer someone living under the approval of the world around you. You can rewrite every condition. You can reframe every limit. And this process doesn't need anyone's validation, only your willingness to declare a new agreement. I no longer collaborate with lack. I choose to walk alongside abundance. The new agreement isn't written on paper. It's written through the repetition of a new belief system. Every time you say, I am learning how to expand my capacity to receive, you are adding a new line. Every time you say, I deserve to live in unconditional prosperity, you are reinforcing the main clause. And every time you decline an invitation from fear, when you stop working just to avoid failure, when you stop spending with a mindset of not enough, you are canceling the old clause. I can only survive if I constantly sacrifice. A new energetic contract doesn't begin with action, but with awareness. It's not about doing more, but about no longer doing things for the old reasons. You don't earn money to prove your worth. You earn money because you know the value you are expressing deserves to be exchanged. You don't save money out of fear, but because you are building a structure for freedom. You don't invest expecting instant return, but because you are writing a new agreement based on vision. Every action in the new contract is rooted in the belief that you are living from principle, not reacting from old pattern. An old contract always comes with a shrinking feeling. You must apologize for wanting more. You must make yourself smaller to fit in. You must feel guilty for choosing yourself. But a new agreement is different. It expands you. It doesn't require approval. It doesn't make you wait until you're worthy. It begins the moment you decide, I am already enough, and I can grow without betraying myself. That is, when you stop seeing lack as reality, and instead as a choice you once made, and now you can change it. No one is holding you back, except your unconscious loyalty to old clauses. But loyalty to limitation is not a virtue. It is self-imprisonment. And you no longer live in an era where limitation is sacred. You live in an age where every belief can be rewritten if you dare to step off the beaten path. If you dare to declare, I no longer represent the old story. I no longer nod to smallness. I represent a new wave where money does not come from blind effort, but from precise frequency. And you don't need anyone to go first to validate that. You just need to live as if the new contract is already in effect. You just need to refuse to renew the old one each morning. Don't start your day with the thought, I have to try harder than yesterday. Start with the declaration, I am living in alignment with my true value, and reality is updating itself accordingly. Because lack doesn't show up by itself. It's invited in through old doors. But once you change the locks and reset the terms, it can no longer exist within the frequency you emit. This is the moment for you to become the legislator of your own reality. No longer the victim, no longer the one waiting, but the one who decides which contract to live by. If the first clause of your new agreement is, I am worthy of prosperity that comes from my full presence, then start there. Everything else will orbit around it in proportion to the degree you believe. No one can cancel the old contract for you. But if you are resolute enough to do it today, everything will change. You don't act based on your desires, you act based on your identity. Something within you, an invisible yet powerful image, is defining who you are. And that very definition determines what you allow to happen in your life. The law of identity doesn't operate on effort, but on recognition. Whatever you believe to be I am immediately creates the pathway for your behavior, finances, relationships, and results. No exceptions. A person may desire wealth, but if their core identity is I am someone who always struggles to survive, then wealth will always remain at the edge, an unreachable mirage. Identity is not something you consciously choose. It's programmed over time through what you hear, repeat, and eventually embrace and believe. And once you believe it, you'll live according to it as if it were absolute truth. But the truth is, every identity can be rewritten. You are not forced to live under an outdated definition of yourself just because it was once true. Identity is software. If it no longer helps you operate effectively, you can update it. And when you change how you define yourself, you change how life responds to you entirely. Someone who lives with the identity, I am careful with money, will behave completely differently from someone who believes, I always get into financial trouble. They spend differently, invest differently, perceive opportunities differently. Every action is encoded by a certain layer of identity. And the most dangerous part is, most of us don't even know what our true identity is until our financial life reflects it. If you're constantly anxious about money, ask, who am I living as? It's not what you want that guides you, it's who you believe you are. That's your real compass. To activate the law of identity in a new direction, you can't just say, I want to change. You must declare a new role, a new image of yourself, and live by it before the world affirms it. Not waiting until you have money to believe you're prosperous, but rather, I live, think, and act as a prosperous person, then money comes as a consequence. You must wear an identity large enough to guide your actions, steady enough to anchor every decision, and honest enough that you don't need to prove it to anyone but yourself. A new identity cannot be borrowed, it must be constructed from within. You cannot copy someone else's life and expect the same results if your inner programming is still based on an old belief. You can follow the steps, learn the strategies, but if your identity remains, I am not worthy of abundance, then every strategy becomes ineffective. Identity is the ultimate limit or leverage. It is either your ceiling or your staircase. And you cannot reach the next level if you don't remove the old name on your door. To change identity, you must start by rejecting the old role. Stop saying, I've never been good with money, I'm just a simple person who doesn't need much, I tend to have bad luck with finances. Each of those phrases is a contract you continue to renew. Replace them with affirmations that reconstruct your inner architecture. I am upgrading my capacity to receive. I am someone who manages resources wisely. I am living as the person my future self is grateful for. And don't just say it, live as if it's already true. No lasting change can happen without a new identity as its foundation. You don't have to feel confident immediately, you just have to stop betraying the new identity with old behaviors. If you choose to believe you're a leader of value, Don't engage in petty conversations. If you choose to live as someone prosperous, don't spend to fill emotional emptiness. If you believe you're someone with vision, don't delay strategic decisions out of fear of being wrong. Every action is a silent affirmation. This is who I am. And your life will begin to reconfigure itself entirely around that answer. No one can grant you a new identity. It must be chosen, repeated, and fully lived day after day. No need for anyone's approval. No need for perfect circumstances. You don't need money to start feeling like someone who is prosperous. You only need to be honest with the value system you've chosen to believe in and act from that place. The universe doesn't wait for you to succeed before it recognizes you. It only needs you to be consistent with the new image of yourself. The real shift isn't in how much money you have, it's in the level of identity you decide to uphold. What game are you playing? Who are you in your financial story? The escapee, the survivor, or the creator? That answer doesn't just shape your present reality, it defines the future you're moving toward. And you don't need more qualifications, more skills, or more validation from others to change. You only need to start living as someone who already owns the new identity, and everything else will fall into place. No one changes their life through fleeting emotion alone. Every lasting transformation begins with establishing a new identity, then repeating it in words and actions until reality is forced to adjust. You cannot expect different results if you continue to live as your old self. What you call yourself each day, what you act on each hour, is the blueprint quietly shaping the reality you live in. If you keep calling yourself someone who's always lacking, someone who lives simply and that's enough, or someone who's not good with money, then no external circumstance needs to hold you back. The old identity has already locked every door to prosperity. A new identity doesn't begin with grand declarations. It begins with simple sentences that you repeat, even if you don't fully believe them at first. I am someone who uses money consciously. I am someone who easily receives great value. I am someone who generates profit from lean ideas. You don't say these things to sound proud. You say them to remind your brain to recalibrate the framework of who you are. And the brain, loyal like a machine, will gradually reorganize your behavior, decisions, relationships, and even emotional responses to align with that new identity. Action doesn't precede identity. It only reveals the identity you carry. People who constantly waste money don't do so because they lack knowledge. They do it because deep down they believe they can't retain value. People who avoid investing don't lack opportunity. They believe they're prone to mistakes. And those who live with limitations aren't short on options. They simply have an identity that only permits a level of living that feels barely safe. But identity can be restructured. And the first key is this: repeat. Affirming statements as if you're rewriting the source code of your personal operating system. If you tell yourself each morning, I am someone chosen for prosperity, your behavior will start to avoid things that don't align with that belief. You'll stop spending money to fill a sense of lack. You'll begin investing with intention rather than waiting for a lucky break. You'll choose relationships that elevate your value rather than cling to them out of habit. Because words don't merely reflect identity, words are tools that establish the structure of a new identity. And when words are repeated with consistency, the brain gradually accepts them as truth, even if there's doubt in the beginning. But words alone aren't enough. A new identity must be sealed with action, even small ones. If you claim to be someone with an investor mindset yet back down from every financial decision out of fear, your brain won't believe you. But if you commit to doing one small thing daily, researching an idea, tracking your cash flow, asking someone who's succeeded, each act sends the message, I am serious about this new identity. Then the brain starts to cooperate. The universe begins to clear the path. Reality begins to bend to the new image you're living. You don't need to play someone else's role. You just need to choose a more authentic version of yourself and live as though you are already that person. No one else needs to believe it. You don't have to prove it. You just need to stay true to your own word. Each time you say, I create value and attract value, act as if that is already true. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be consistent. A new identity won't arrive if you keep living the old way while hoping for new outcomes. Identity becomes reality only when you allow it to guide every action, every decision, every word with repetition, consistency, and intention. Repetition is not for control, but for reinforcement. Just like a musician cannot master their instrument by merely reading sheet music, you cannot live your new identity by declaration alone. You must practice every day. Respond to challenges with new thinking. Spend money from a place of fullness rather than fear. Choose work, partners, and opportunities from the identity of someone who generates streams of value instead of someone just trying to survive. And when you repeat that enough, one day you'll be surprised by how you react, not like your old self, but like a version of you that has truly evolved. What you're living today is the result of identities you once repeated, and what you live tomorrow will be the result of the identity you choose today, not through logic, but through intentional repetition in words and action. Identity isn't formed in a moment. It is forged through hundreds of small decisions. So if you want to change your life, don't start with goals, start with identity. Ask, the person living the life I desire, what do they say to themselves each morning? What do they choose when no one's watching? How do they act when standing between the old edge and a new opportunity? And then do exactly that. No waiting, no asking for permission, no doubt. Not everyone with strong willpower becomes wealthy. Not everyone who works hard achieves freedom. In this world, truth operates according to principles, not emotions, not circumstances, and certainly not blind effort. That's why many people live in endless cycles despite tremendous effort. They fail to understand that the laws of wealth do not require struggle, they require obedience. Not obedience to other people, but obedience to principles, the unchanging laws that govern how energy, money, opportunity, and value circulate. The law of obedience tells you one simple truth. If you align with principle, you receive the corresponding result. If you emit a consistent frequency, you attract the exact frequency in return. There are no lucky exceptions, no coincidences for those who disobey. If you act out of fear, your results will be filled with control. If you sow dishonesty in speech, you will reap chaos in your finances. If you make decisions from a limited identity, you will keep repeating the results of someone who never feels enough. This is not punishment. It is the natural reflection of the system. We are conditioned to think that freedom means doing whatever we want. But in truth, freedom only comes when you obey principles. A great musician is not free when playing the wrong notes. They are free because they have practiced to precision, and from that precision, creativity flows. Likewise, a prosperous life does not arise from impulse. It comes from intelligent obedience to principles that have proven consistent for thousands of years. The principle that giving is not loss, but circulation. The principle that what you affirm repeatedly is what you are inviting into your reality. The principle that everything you receive stems from a form of internal agreement, even if unconscious. You don't need to master every law in the universe, but you must know clearly which law is currently shaping your results and whether you are obeying it fully. Obedience here is not submission. It is intelligent collaboration with the order already in place. Like someone who knows how to navigate a boat and flows with the current to go faster instead of swimming upstream to prove something. You're not here to fight against principle, and you're here to align with it, and from that alignment build a life that is intentional, directed, and expansively powerful. Every time you act from calculation instead of trust, you are disobeying. Every time you use your words to control rather than to create, you are stepping away from principle. Every time you spend money out of fear of losing instead of with the intention to generate value, you invite financial leakage closer. No action is meaningless if it is repeated. A small deviation from principle, repeated long enough, will build a reality far from your true desires. On the other hand, when you begin to obey, by taking right action even before seeing results, you start to open the gate for higher things to enter. You no longer act from emotion, you act from principle. It's not about saying, I believe, and waiting for a miracle. You live as if what you believe is already true. That is the highest form of obedience. You don't need to be convinced daily. You don't need signs for validation. You follow principle because you understand life does not respond to wavering beliefs. It responds to the frequency you remain loyal to. True obedience doesn't make you smaller, it makes you stronger. Because you are no longer swayed by the emotions of today. You have an internal navigation system. You have an inner structure, and from that you gain real power, the power of consistency. You don't have to be perfect, but you must always be clear. Which principle am I living by? If the answer is lack, doubt, or struggle, then you know why you haven't yet seen the results you want. But if the answer is, I am sowing clarity, I am speaking the language of prosperity, I am acting from a higher energy frequency, then you also know you are on the right path, even if the results haven't arrived yet. Obedience does not take your freedom away. It restores your full creative power. When you know how to steer the boat in the right direction of the current, you move faster without strain. When you obey the principle of prosperity, you no longer need to use your entire willpower to hold things together, because the system begins to support you. The issue isn't that you're not smart enough or not trying hard enough. The issue is whether you are cooperating correctly with the laws. And that doesn't require you to be the best. It only requires that you be honest enough to recognize results don't come from the external. They come from the degree to which you truly obey the principles that govern your reality. Inspiration is a beautiful starting point, but it is not the path. Inspiration lights up a moment. Discipline sustains the entire journey. If you keep waiting for a morning when you wake up with absolute energy, a crystal clear mind, and the perfect environment to start living as someone of high value, you will be waiting forever. Transformation is not for those who wait for inspiration. It happens to those who commit, not just to the result, but to every repeated behavior, every conscious response, every small intentional choice, even when no one is watching. If you truly want to step out of old cycles, you need a system that doesn't depend on emotion. And there is no method more effective than building a streamlined discipline framework applied for 7 days without letting judgment interfere. This is not a challenge to prove your strength. It is a structure you build to reshape your identity. A new identity doesn't appear on its own. It must be fully lived, repeated, and engraved into you through behavior and rhythm. 7 days isn't long, but it's enough to redirect a mental trajectory that's been misaligned for too long. Day 1, unsubscribe from every thought that makes you small. On the first day, nothing is more important than observing your thinking. Every time a thought arises, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not sure I deserve this, or I'm not ready, you don't need to fight or replace it. Just refuse to subscribe. Tell yourself, this is old thinking. I am no longer that person. You don't need forced positivity. You just need to stop agreeing with the voices that have led you to lack. Day 2, use your words as a form of currency. Every word you speak is a transfer order from your spiritual bank. What are you saying about money, yourself, and your future? On the second day, only speak what you want to become true. Don't talk about lack. Don't say things like hopefully. Don't diminish yourself with jokes. Speak as if you are building new foundations. Speak short, clear, precise statements. I am expanding my capacity to receive value. I invest wisely in what elevates me. Every word is a message to the universe and a signal to your nervous system. Day 3, act like the person you want to become. There's no need for grand gestures, but every behavior today must be chosen from your new identity. How would someone who feels abundant handle this situation? What would someone with an investor's mindset choose? How would someone living on a higher value frequency spend, dress, communicate, and respond? Don't wait to succeed before acting like a successful person. Live that way to become worthy of it. The third day is about quiet courage. No need for recognition, just the inner knowing that you are adjusting yourself. Day 4, practice selective silence. It's not about saying less, it's about stopping speech that leaks your energy. No complaining, no self-pity, no updating your life to people who don't support you. Treat silence as a form of power. When you no longer need to explain what you're doing, you're reinforcing internal belief. The fourth day is not for isolation, but for cleansing. You don't speak things misaligned with your new frequency simply because you've chosen to broadcast on a different channel. Day 5. Identify 3 old behaviors to eliminate. Transformation isn't just about adding new things, it's also about removing the old. Today, write down 3 behaviors, habits, or small reflexes that you know are breaking your new identity. Checking your bank account repeatedly with anxiety, spending money to feel powerful, delaying investment decisions out of fear of being wrong. You don't need to act on them yet. Just name them clearly. Ask a single question. If I lived as someone of high value, would I still have this behavior? The answer will guide you. Day 6, shift one action from reflex to intentional. Choose a behavior you often perform unconsciously, like how you respond to emails, open social media, or decide on small purchases. Today, do it with full presence. Pause for a few seconds before each action. Ask, am I doing this from fear or from fullness? Every time you shift an automatic behavior into one of intention, you reclaim control over your identity, and that identity, once firm, will no longer allow reality to respond in chaotic, inconsistent ways. Day 7, reflect not to judge, but to accumulate self-respect. Write down every action you've taken in the past 6 days that shows you are living on a higher value frequency. No need to be verbose, just be specific. I refrained from saying something negative. I didn't spend money to escape loneliness. I replied to an email as a leader, not as someone seeking approval. Each of these is a brick laid for your new identity. Read them back and tell yourself, this is who I am becoming. You don't need inspiration to continue. You just need to see yourself in the behavior you chose, in the decisions you've already revised. There's nothing magical about 7 days, but if you do it right, clearly, consistently, without negotiating with your feelings, what you gain isn't immediate results, but an identity strong enough to carry you beyond them. Inspiration cannot sustain transformation. Only discipline can. Many people live in an age overflowing with tools, yet feel empty and directionless. They have positive affirmations, but their mouths say one thing while their hearts are full of doubt. They read self-help books, yet every action in their day springs from old habits. They write goals, create vision boards, study countless methods for attracting wealth, yet not a single one becomes a true living structure within, because they haven't grasped one core truth. Words are not for decoration, and actions are not for scoring points. They are tools, and if used correctly, they can transform your entire reality. You don't need dozens of strategies. You just need to choose one way of speaking, one type of action, and repeat it like a sacred ritual. Power doesn't come from quantity, but from consistency. A single right sentence repeated every morning with deep trust will rewire your neural pathways, recalibrate your brain's filtering system, and shape the vibration you emit each day. One small action, done with clear intent and unwavering focus, will imprint itself on your identity like a new code. And that identity, not desire, is what sets your outcomes. If you want to transform your finances, you must turn your words into tools. Not words said to try to believe, but spoken as if they were commands that reality must respond to. Each morning, before stepping out of your house, stand in front of the mirror and declare, I am a creator of value. I receive abundant flow. I live as someone with surplus, not as someone in lack. No need for lengthy speeches, just the right frequency. You don't have to strain to believe. You just need to speak regularly, like someone who has chosen that version as their new default. Repeat it long enough, and your mind will no longer distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. It simply responds to what it has been trained on. And if you truly want to step into a higher frequency, you must turn daily actions into rituals. This means stop doing things unconsciously. Action is for reaffirming identity. When you spend money, pause for a moment, breathe. Remind yourself, I am releasing money from a state of fullness. When you reply to emails, don't just transmit information. Respond like a leader, concise, confident, intentional. When you walk, instead of scrolling through your phone, walk as if each step is a declaration of presence. That is a ritual, not needing religion, not needing a stage, only your absolute presence in every small act. The deepest transformation never comes from grand gestures. It comes from the small things when done with a different level of energy. A morning cup of tea can be a mindless habit or a ritual of receiving peace. A thank you note can be social etiquette or a reflection of a grateful identity. You choose. And when you choose with intention, you're not just repeating behavior, you're rewriting who you believe yourself to be. A new identity doesn't need to be performed. It only needs to be repeated correctly, on the right frequency, and consistently. This is why so many spoken affirmations don't work, because they're said from a state of disbelief. A person says, I am becoming wealthier each day, but feels anxious, afraid, and compares themselves constantly. The universe does not respond to language. It responds to the true frequency beneath the words. If words are tools, then emotions are the power source that makes those tools work. And that energy only comes when you truly believe, when you truly live it, when you no longer doubt the new structure being installed. Try choosing one everyday behavior and redoing it as a ritual. Nothing complex. Just add presence and a clear command. For example, when transferring money to pay a bill, instead of thinking, I have to spend again, whisper, this money goes out to make way for more to return. When writing your goals, don't write today dream. Write as if you're signing a contract with yourself. Each word is a commitment. Each number is a directional code. And when you read them again, read as if you're reading action orders, not prayer requests. No one needs to know what you're doing. True power doesn't come from being recognized. It comes from the inner structure you are rebuilding each day. You can be an ordinary person, not great with words, with few resources, but if you speak clearly, act with ritual, and repeat, both with reverence, you're tuning in, and when you're tuned to the right frequency, nothing can block you from the flow of value that is already waiting. Ultimately, remember, words are only powerful when lived. Actions are only sacred when reprogrammed by a new identity. Don't wait until everything is ready. Don't wait until you feel enough. Start today with one sentence declared on the right frequency, one action redone as a ritual, and one small act of daily consistency. Wealth structure isn't out there. It lies in how you repeat yourself. Most people aren't poor because of a lack of opportunity. They're poor because they live their whole lives in a state of hope. Hope that tomorrow will be better, that money will arrive, that something external will change so they can finally begin living like someone abundant. But hope, however beautiful, is not a strategy. Hope makes you wait. Vibration is what changes reality. When you hope for money, you're affirming that you currently do not have it. And the universe does not listen to your prayers, it only responds to the frequency you consistently emit. This is why those who constantly think about money, wish for it, yearn for it, are often the ones furthest from it. They don't realize that every thought like "I need more" is an unconscious declaration of "I am currently lacking," and you cannot emit the energy of lack while expecting to receive the results of abundance. This contradiction doesn't lie in willpower, it lies in vibrational structure. And unless you're awake enough to recognize it, you will continue to live as a hopeful rather than become a commander. True transformation begins when you stop begging for change and start behaving as a creator. A vibration commander doesn't say, "I hope things will get better." They declare, "I'm broadcasting a new frequency, and my reality must respond accordingly." They don't wait for money to arrive before feeling valuable. They embody value in the present moment. And that very vibration draws money in. They don't seek money. They become a broadcast so precise that money has no choice but to find them. And the most remarkable part is, you don't need any special condition to begin. You don't need more money, more time, more knowledge. You just need a choice. To live as someone who has already selected a higher version of themselves. Not pretending, but living with intention. Every morning you rise and remind yourself, I don't emit the vibration of begging. I emit the vibration of direction. I don't chase money. I compel money to respond to my frequency. And then you step into the day with a posture that is free of dependence. From this point forward, every interaction becomes a test of your vibration. You spend money, not with the fear of "will I have enough," but with the question, from what state am I spending? If you spend in anxiety, you emit lack. If you spend with gratitude, you emit flow. You don't need to spend more, you just need to spend on a new frequency. Every message you send, every decision you make, every conversation you join is where you either reinforce the old identity or establish the new one. And a new identity must come with a new vibration. Picture money as a form of radio wave. It doesn't seek those who need it, it seeks those broadcasting its exact frequency. If you live in a state of "I'm not enough," "I'm unsure," "will anyone buy this," "do I deserve it," you're emitting static. And money, like all vibrations in the universe, only responds to clear signals. The question you need to ask is not "how do I make money," but "who am I in relationship to money?" Are you the hopeful, the doubter, or the commander? Starting today, stop chasing outcomes and begin adjusting your structure. A commander doesn't seek proof to believe, they believe. And that belief creates the proof. They don't wait for the right time, they act correctly even when nothing is guaranteed. They don't say, "hopefully I'll sell more this month." They say, "I am syncing my words, actions, and state with the wealth frequency, and that is enough to generate results." When you live like this, you are no longer reacting, you are issuing commands. The core of financial transformation is not in tricks or technical tools. It lies in whether you dare to stop being a supplicant and start living as a broadcaster. The irony is this: money never responds to weak desires. It only responds to someone who has chosen a powerful, steady, unwavering frequency. And that begins with one single choice: to not live one more day as someone waiting to be rescued, but to live as someone leading their life from the deepest vibration. If you're truly serious, spend a few minutes each day standing still, breathing, and asking, what am I broadcasting to the world right now? No need to self-judge, no need to fix your emotions. Just be honest. Then from there, choose again. Place your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and say a clear command. I am the center point of flow. I allow myself to receive. I align with expansion. Repeat it as a ritual. Not to beg, but to broadcast. Not to hope it happens, but to affirm what has already been chosen. Because ultimately, money is not a reward. Money is a response. And you don't need to pray to receive a response. You only need to broadcast clearly and consistently. From today onward, stop being the hopeful. Become the commander. No need to control the result, only adjust the frequency. When your vibration is strong enough, reality has no choice but to respond precisely to the version of you that you are living.